Hello, thank you, Daisy. So it's a pleasure to show today the integration that we currently have with Storyboard Pro. And there's actually a lot of stuff that I'm going to be showing today. And just to briefly talk about the integration that we're going to be demoing today is I'm going to show some of the stuff that we currently have in the latest version of Flix. And there's obviously a lot more features that we have planned. So think of this as kind of like a preview of the Storyboard Pro integration, and there's a lot more to come soon. So this is Flix. It's now up on my screen, and as you can probably notice, it's running inside a browser. When we originally started designing Flix, we sort of narrowed it down to sort of two principal ideas that we wanted to focus on. And those two ideas, one was speed, and the other one was collaboration. So we didn't really want to slow down the artists in any way when they're doing their pre-production. And we wanted to make it really easy for them to create different ideas using the tools that make sense for them. And also we wanted to make it really easy for them to collaborate. And when we think about collaboration, we think about collaboration in three different ways. We wanted to make it easy for story artists to collaborate with other story artists, obviously. But we also wanted to make it easy for artists between different departments to collaborate. So you can have story artists collaborating with layout artists or previous artists or even production artists. And the last thing, which is really exciting, and it seems like there's where most of the studios do nowadays, is to make it really easy for artists to collaborate across locations. And it's become pretty common that different studios will have different facilities spread out across the world. And also we see a lot more collaboration between different studios on the pre-production side. And then also more and more studios use more and more freelance artists. So Flix makes it easy to collaborate, whether you're a remote artist or even if you're two separate studios collaborating together on a single project. So one of the things that was always a challenge, just to get in, jump in Flix, is like one of the things that was always a challenge was to find the latest version of the storyboard panels. And with Flix, it's pretty easy. And once you log in, this is the screen that I get. And it shows me the projects that I'm assigned to. So it will only show me the projects that I'm assigned to. And once I select the project, and I copied here some sequences from Sony Pictures Animation. So I copied some stuff from Hotel Transylvania. So if I'm going to work on one of the sequences there, then I select the project. I'm going to select the sequence that I'm going to work on. And then I just tell Flix to give me the latest version. So in just a couple of clicks, I don't have to go through subfolders. I don't have to go and find coordinators. I don't have to go to Editorial. If I want to see the latest version of the storyboard panels, just through a couple of clicks, it gives me the latest version of the storyboard panels. So now I can go into full screen mode. And this is also what the story artists will use to present the storyboard panels to the rest of the team. And once I'm in full screen mode, I can step through the panels. And I can see the latest version for the sequence. And there's a couple of cool things that we have in the pitch view mode. And one of them is the ability to play back the latest version coming from Editorial. So if I already storyboarded the sequence and I send it to Editorial and Editorial added timing and audio, then I can just press the space bar.
Anyone, I'm homeschooling. Vampire. Is that garlic?
Vampire.
And as you can see, Flix plays the sequence for me using Editorial's timing and audio. And it's cool for a couple of reasons. One of them is that because I can access this through the browser from anywhere in the world, it means that it minimizes the need to send QuickTime movies all over the place and then having to manage those QuickTime movies. But the other cool part is that it actually rearranges all your storyboard panels to match exactly what's in Editorial. So as a story artist, if I'm making revisions to this sequence, I can easily see the context of the edit, and I can make my changes within the context of the edit. And let's say that I wanted to make a revision to this panel. And sort of going back to that idea of speed and collaboration, Flix finds the file for me, the Storyboard Pro file for me that was used to generate this panel. And if I double click on the panel, it will automatically launch Storyboard Pro, and it will automatically load the file that was used to create those panels. And the other cool part is that in a large sequence where I might have like hundreds of panels, it will also change the time, the current frame to go to the panel that I had selected. So I don't have to look for that panel within this sequence. So it sort of follows the two areas that I mentioned before. Speed, it finds a file for me. I don't have to go and search for it and waste time, finding that panel. And also the other thing, it also makes it really easy to collaborate, because maybe I'm not the artist that created the panel. Flix knows where that file was, so it will automatically find it for me, and it makes it easy for me to make revisions on somebody else's panels. So so let's make a revision to that panel. So let's say that we wanted to have some lines coming out of this right here, and maybe he's getting a little sleepy, so we change part of the expressions. So now if I make a change to that panel, I can easily send it back to Flix by using one of the three options. This one will export my entire project, but in this case I just want to export the selected panel. So I'm just going to select that, and I leave the settings exactly as they are. And Flix will automatically detect that I made a change to the panel, so I can see, already that it updated the panel within Flix. I can see that it brought in my changes, it replaced it in the edit, and at the same time, it didn't actually delete the file that was there. It versioned up the file that was there. So I can click on the label here, and I can see the previous version of that panel. And if I wanted to switch back to the previous version, I can easily do that. I'm going to save my sequence now. And of course, the other big part is that now that I saved the new edit of this sequence, it's instantly accessible by everybody else on the team. And it doesn't matter where they are in the world. So I'm going to close now my Storyboard profile. And now that I can step through the panels, I can see that it actually replaced the panel in there and with my latest updates. There's some other cool stuff that we have, as I mentioned before, like we save the edit of the sequence. And again, because Flix automatically versions up those panels, it doesn't actually delete the previous version that was there. And this is a real sequence from Hotel Transylvania. And one of the cool things that you will notice in this sequence is that we tell the artist to save often, and it keeps all the versions around from the very first version of this sequence. And it's also color-coded by artists. So as I scroll down through this list, I can see a lot of colors changing, meaning that, like every time there's a color change, it's a different artist working on this sequence. So you can really see the level of collaboration that happens on a real production sequence. One of the cool things I would like to show is this segment here where, let me find it really quick. So here there's a screening coming up. And as we all know, right before a deadline, there's a lot of people jumping in to do sort of last changes. And there's a lot of colors changing right before the screening. But one of the cool things here is that there is a version that came from Editorial. And because Flix makes it really easy to collaborate, one of the things that they're doing at Sony Pictures Animation is to have Cintiqs in Editorial, and this is what most studios do when they use Flix, is to have Cintiqs in Editorial, and so that way, as you're revising the edits and you're looking at the edits, you can have either the director or the head of story or some of the story artists in Editorial and make last-minute revisions as you're looking at the edits. So where before you would normally take notes and send the notes to the story artist, and the story artist revise them and send them back maybe a day later or 2 days later. In this case, you can sort of make really quick sort of revisions right on the fly and then publish that version into Editorial. Editorial can incorporate those changes into the edit and then send them back to Flix. And from here, you can have the artist working on that sequence. So let's talk a little bit about sending stuff to Editorial. The process is really easy. First thing that I want to do before I send something to Editorial, now that we made this revision, is probably show it to the director. So in this case, if I want to show this to the director, I'm going to use this connect function. And maybe the director is working somewhere remotely, maybe he is traveling, or maybe he's in a different location. So I'm just going to click create a new channel, and this turns green, letting me know that I've created my channel. And then I call the director, which will he will create his own Flix session. So just by launching Flix and clicking on the connect function, he'll be able to see my channel. So, and when the director joins my channel, it automatically loads the same version that I'm looking at. So now I can actually show my revision to the director. So I can step through the panels, and anybody can drive from either side. And they can then I can pitch my sequence. And another cool thing is that you can also draw live notes over the connect mode. So if the director wanted to draw a note and say, you know what, I think in this panel we should probably move this guy and maybe move him over here, you can draw a note and automatically update on all sessions. And this is not limited to just 2 people. You can have as many artists as you want join a particular session. The other cool thing is when you draw notes, it automatically puts this box around the panel, letting you know that there was a note attached to that. The note always stays separate from the panels, and by toggling the draw mode on and off, you can see the note that was drawn for that particular panel. So now that we've shown it to the director and he liked that panel and we're ready to send it to editorial, first thing that I want to do is make a PDF file. So I'm going to click the PDF button here, which makes a photostat for me. And it automatically creates this PDF file that has high-res versions of all the panels. It has dialogue that's selectable and also searchable. The PDFs can be fully customized to match exactly your studio's needs. And the one cool thing that Flix does for the PDFs is put this green box around all the new panels that haven't made it to editorial yet. So this makes it really easy. When I give this to the editor, they can just visually see all the new panels. Just by scrapping through this list here, they can visually see all the new panels that are coming to editorial, and they know where it's supposed to go in the edits. So now I'm going to publish it to Premiere. So I'm going to use Premiere as my editing application. And one of the cool things about Flix is that we support multiple applications. So you can either use Avid, Premiere, Final Cut Pro 7, or Nuke Studio for your editing. So in this case, I'm just going to use Premiere, and I'm going to publish. It's a pretty straightforward process. And what Flix does in this case, it's identifying all the new panels. It makes high-res versions of these panels. It adds any burn-ins that we set up for the studio. And it creates this XML that I can drag and drop into Premiere. And before I launch Premiere, one of the other cool things that Flix does, it sends an email out whenever you publish something to the whole team, letting you know that a new version of the sequence was published to editorial. So in this case, this email is telling me that I published a version to editorial. I published version 8.15 from this sequence, HUM, and this was compared to version 8.12. And Flix automatically identifies 6 new panels. Maybe if I re-edit some panels that were already in editorial, it also lets me know that some panels were re-edited. And it also lists all the panels that were deleted when it was compared to version 8.12. At the bottom, it also lists all the panels that make up that sequence. The other thing that I was going to point out is that here it also tells you where it goes in the edit. So it tells me that this panel is actually the 3rd panel in the edit. In this case, is the 21st panel, and so on. And another cool thing about this list is that all these are links. So if I hover my mouse over it, I can see that it's changing my mouse to show me that it's a link. And if I click on any of those labels, it will automatically launch for me in a new tab, Flix, and it will load that sequence. It will automatically highlight the panel. So if I wanted to know what panel 1034 version 1 is, then I can instantly see that it loaded that version. It also selects panel 1034, so I can visually see what panel 1034 was, and I can also see the panels before it and the panels after it, so I can find it in my edits. So I'm going to close this. So yeah, we have the automatic emails, we have the PDFs, and we also have this XML that Flix created. So let's launch Premiere. And from here, I'm just going to load a blank project. Okay, so And Flix automatically creates 2 files for me. One of them just has the new panels. And the assumption being that the first time that you're going to grab something from Flix is going to be all the panels. And then you start working on your edits. And you're going to create multiple tracks. You're going to add effects. You're going to add all your audio tracks, all this kind of stuff. You don't really want Flix to mess with your edits. So rather than sending an edit back and forth Flix, what Flix does is it tells you what's new. So it makes it really easy for you as an editor to find all the new panels. So in this case, if I was to use drag and drop just the new XML, then I can see that it imports 2 clips for me. Oh, and I noticed that my Premiere, forget that, my new Premiere version has an issue with refreshing the screen there. But I can see that it brings in my 2 new panels and as individual clips. So it makes it really easy for me to identify the new panels, and then I can incorporate them into my edit. So I'm going to delete this for now, and I'm going to use the other one, which has all the panels. So that's the second option. So if you just want the new panels and then you just want to figure out what the new panels are and insert them into your edit, then you're going to be using this one. But your other option is to use all the panels and bring the entire edit back into Premiere. So at the very bottom of this, at the very top of this, I can see that Flix also creates a sequence for me, and it imports all the panels in here, all the clips. And one of the other cool things that Flix does, if it thinks I already have these panels, some of the panels in Editorial, it disables them by default. So this way, if I have an edit going with all the effects and all the audio tracks and all these things, I can copy and paste this track on top of my existing edit, and then I can scrub across it and I can see what changed. However, if I want to enable any of these clips, I can just easily select them and say enable. And let's do the same for these panels over here. So if I want to reuse any of these clips, then I can enable that. And as I scrub across, I can see that it brings in all the panels using the timing from Flix. The other cool thing that I'm going to point out here is the original sequence was actually edited in Avid. And by publishing it to Flix and then publishing it into Premiere, we sort of created a conversion from Avid into Premiere. So if you're a studio where they might like to do pre-production in Premiere, but then you want to publish into production in Avid, then you can use Flix as a hub. You can do all your pre-production edits in Premiere, and then when you're done, publish the edit into Avid, and it will maintain all the timing for all your storyboard panels. So I have now, let's say that we do a complicated edit, and I have already an edit that I can use for the demo. So I have here what can look like more like an actual production edit, where you might have different types of transitions. You have some camera shakes in here, and also some color effects, nested sequences, and camera moves on top of nested sequences. You have like a lot of different effects. You don't actually have to clean this up before you publish into Flix. The process of publishing back to Flix is pretty straightforward. You can export out 2 files. You need to export out 2 files. First file is a Final Cut Pro file. So you just select this one and save your file somewhere on your desktop. And then you also export out a QuickTime movie. And then going back to Flix, we'll launch a different GUI within Flix that's specifically for Editorial. And then I browse and grab those 2 files. So I'm just going to click here to grab the XML and the QuickTime movie. I select my show and my sequence from the project browser, and then I just send it over to, so let me click to Flix, and then I just click to Flix. What Flix is doing is, first of all, it analyzes the edit. So it goes through the XML, it figures out what we've done in the edit, and it recognizes what clips I'm using. So it's saying I'm using this clip here, but I also added some effects on top of it. So I added some basic motion effects, and we actually zoomed in a little bit on the panel. And in other cases, we have overlapping clips. And what this list is telling me is that because I added this effect onto that clip, Flix is going to create a new reference panel using frames from the QuickTime movie so that I can see what Editorial did. So it's letting me know that it's finished importing into Flix. So what it's doing is like it's grabbing some frames, frame 1 to 20, to represent that effect that I have done. And in this case, where I had overlapping clips, did the same thing. It says I'm going to create a new reference movie to show what the Editorial has done. And then also, if I had any other types of effects, like we had overlapping clips here to represent the fire, then again, it creates like a lot of either reference deals or reference movie to represent what is done in the Editorial. So, and as you saw, it doesn't take that long to actually process the edit and publish it back to Flix. It notifies me again that through email that a new edit has come through. And now, if I switch back to Flix that the artists use, I can see that there's a new version that came from Editorial. One of the cool things is that I can load this version and it will load the version. And another cool thing that Flix does is if I actually wanted to get the QuickTime movie that comes from Editorial, there is a Q button here. And if I click the Q button there, it actually will launch for me in QuickTime the edit that was saved out of Editorial as a QuickTime movie. So I can also share it from here if I wanted to. But let's go back to the Flix version. So I can see here that I have the edit exactly as it looks like inside Premiere. And one of the, and as I mentioned before, it creates a reference clip to display what we've done in Editorial to show that we cropped in onto that panel. And even though it's a reference clip that was generated by using frames out of the QuickTime movie, it still has a connection to the original panel. So if I wanted to go back to the original panel, I can simply click on the label here. This is the same label that I clicked to show the versions, but instead of showing me versions, it just tells me that here's the original panel that was used to create that that was used in the edit here before the effect was added. Same thing here, as I scroll down below, I can see where we had all these color effects. It shows me the color effect that was used in Editorial, but if I wanted to switch back to the original panel to say make a revision, if it's easier for me to make a revision in the original panel, then I can easily switch back to that. And if I wanted to go back, I can just undo that change. So, so that was like a really sort of brief overview of the Editorial workflow through Premiere. And I'm going to switch now to a brand new sequence. And I'm just going to relaunch Flix here. And I want to show a little bit more about how we send stuff back and forth Storyboard Pro. So I'm going to create a brand new sequence. Start a clean version. And I don't need Premiere anymore, so I'm just going to close it. And I'm going to launch Storyboard Pro. So here I have like a short sequence. It also has a camera move on here. And it's been timed out. And I would like to send this over to Flix. The process of sending it over to Flix is pretty simple. So in this case, we want to export the entire project. So this is the first time, since it's the first time that we're actually sending the sequence. So I'm going to tell here Storyboard Pro, export the project, and click export here. And what's happening here is that Storyboard Pro start exporting all the files, and I can see already in Flix that it's recognizing that there's some panels coming through from Storyboard Pro. So it's waiting now for the export to be completed. And it just takes a minute here. So as soon as it's done, I can see that Flix already starts processing all the new material that is being exported now from Storyboard Pro. Okay, and it's done. So the couple of things that I want to point out here is that one, we maintain the timing coming from Storyboard Pro. So here Flix is telling me the duration for each one of those panels. So as I step through the panels, I can see that the duration is changing, and that information actually comes from Storyboard Pro. Also, the other thing that I was going to point out, in a case where we have camera moves, so like in this case where we have camera moves, Flix will actually recreate the camera move coming from Storyboard Pro, so they can represent it for all the story artists that are working within Flix. And let's say that we want to change the timing. Let's say that we send this to Premiere to change timing, or maybe another option that I would like to do is that I'm going to use this to pitch to the directors. And as I pitch to the directors, I would actually like to record my timing. So I'm going to switch over here to pitch mode, and I'm going to turn the microphone on, and then I'm going to tell Flix to record my timing. So now, as I'm stepping through the panels, Flix will automatically grab the duration for each one of those panels as with every time that I click the right arrow key. So every time I click the arrow key, it's saying that's the duration that you want to use for those panels. So I can, and at the same time, it's also recording my voice. So if I go back to the very beginning and I press the spacebar, timing. So now, you can hear my recorded voice as I was doing the pitch session. So, and again, it goes back to that idea of speed and collaboration. We don't intend to replace the timing functionality that's inside Storyboard Pro. We don't intend to replace the timing functionality that's inside Premiere. It's just in some cases where it can help speed up the process, or it makes it easy to collaborate, then we tend to add those features. So now I can save my pitch, and I can send this to Premiere. And in Premiere, I will get the new timing. I can get the new audio. And let's say that in Premiere that we update the edits and we decide, oh, these panels should go at the beginning. And just for fun, we're actually going to change the timing even more, and we're going to hold each one of those frames for 200. Each one of those panels for 200 frames. So, and I save this, and this now represents my sequence. So, one of the other cool things that we offer with the Storyboard Pro integration is that you can actually send these new edits back to Storyboard Pro, and Storyboard Pro can conform to match your edit that's here. So we already we use the functionality that Storyboard Pro already offers to conform an edit, to an edit, and the process is pretty simple. So rather than publishing to Avid, Premiere, or Nuke Studio, we're going to publish the edit back to Storyboard Pro. So publish, and Flix again will identify all the new panels. It makes high-res versions. So in case there's something missing from your Storyboard Pro file, it will actually insert panels coming from Flix. So here we are, it creates an XML. So I'm going to go into that conformation mode, and I'm going to use this function here, import animatic project. And I'm just going to paste. I don't have to browse for the file. Great thing about Storyboard Pro is that actually allows you to type it in here. So what we've done is we put in the clipboard the file that has to be loaded. So I just paste it and then say import, okay, close. And I can see that Storyboard Pro conforms to the Flix edit. So I can see that it updated my edit and is now using the new timing that came from Flix. And that timing in this case was the timing that we typed in, and also but from the recorded pitch, but it could have just as well originated from Premiere or Avid. And then you'll be able to see the edit as it was in Premiere or Avid. Okay, so you get an idea of the full round trip publishing from Storyboard Pro to Flix, to Avid, to Premiere, back to Flix, back to Storyboard Pro. So I'm going to close this, and I want to show some other cool little features that we have. And to show you some of the other features that we have, I'm going to switch back to our Atrium sequence, and I'm going to load a version from here. So the one thing that I want to show now is the ability to use Flix as a hub for both story artists and previous artists and layout artists. So the first thing that I want to show is that in Flix you can also create markers, and markers can be created either in Flix or is the equivalent of scene breaks in Storyboard Pro. So you can also create them in Storyboard Pro and they will transfer over to Flix. So the process of creating them within Flix is just select the first panel for each shot and click on the markers there. So now I'm telling Flix that these 3 panels are one shot. And this is where another shot starts. And now I want to start another shot here. And I can even select multiple panels at the same time and create the marker, and it creates these markers for me. So now I know that, okay, that's one shot, another shot, and so on. And it also automatically gives a name to those shots. And just as with Storyboard Pro, if you actually create them in Storyboard Pro, it will maintain the naming that came from Storyboard Pro. But if you create them in Flix and you decide that you want to manually name them, you can always manually name them. And you can also mix and match. So in this case, it's 1, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So now there's a lot of information here that we can push into production or into an application like Maya. So we know that this is the storyboard panel used to create these shots. And we also know that this is the timing used to create each one of those shots. And it'd be great if we can publish this into Maya so we can start doing some previews or some layout. So I'm going to launch Maya. And I'm going to start Flix within Maya so I can send commands. And the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to publish now my sequence over to Maya. So I click on the Maya button there, and it publishes my entire edit into Maya. So I can already see there's an image plane that came through. And if I switch over to the camera sequencer, here's my camera sequencer, and I can tell it, show me all the shots. I can see it created some shots, and the shots match exactly the shots that I created inside Flix. And as I scrub through this, I can see that it imports the image planes, and it imports the image planes, and it also matches the timing for each image planes in the same way as it is in Flix. So now I can, as a previous artist or as a layout artist, I can start building my shots based on this, and then I can use the functions that we have within Maya to publish my edits back into my animated shots back into Flix. So I'm going to close this. So I'm going to go and load a new file in here. And I'm also going to start a new edit within Flix, start a clone version. And I want to show some more cool stuff. So, so here I have a Maya file. And I want to show quickly a process that we call staging. And staging is kind of like doing previews without timing. And the idea being that I want to be able to take a lot of different shots pretty easily and say, okay, I want my first panel to be like this with the door open. So take a snapshot of this. And what that function does for me is it takes a snapshot automatically for me. It sends it over to Flix. It crops it to the show aspect ratio. It gives it a name. It puts it in the right place. And I don't have to worry about that stuff. And then I can say, okay, for my second snapshot, then I want the door to be closed. Take another snapshot there. And want the camera to move slightly. I also would like the guide to move a little slightly here. And take another snapshot, move the camera, and take another snapshot. And really easily take a lot of snapshots for start making my shots. And maybe we want to get into a second shot. So take another snapshot there, move the camera slightly, take another snapshot there. So I have a lot of images that I can start playing with to build out my shot. So maybe, you know, one of the options is to send this to Premiere, and in Premiere I can do some timing, and I can send it back to Flix with the timing and then publish it into Maya. But maybe before we do that, you know, maybe another option would be, why don't we send this to Storyboard Pro? So you could optionally also publish this into Storyboard Pro, and you can start drawing right on top of those panels. So multiple ways you can use the staging stuff, like maybe you use it as reference and it creates an XML file, and which I can then use to conform within Storyboard Pro. So I can say, okay, create a new file here. Okay, just put it on my desktop. And just using the standard conform process. Okay, and it brings in the panels that I can then use to draw my panels, like just use for reference, and I can easily sort of draw something and then, send it over to Flix. So using the export project, I can send all my panels over to Flix. One of the cool things about the staging process is that the time when we were grabbing all these snapshots and sending them over to Flix, it was also grabbing different metadata. So even though we might never really save this file, and we never really saved any of those poses, and we never really saved any of those cameras, Flix has metadata that it can use to restore those poses for me. So let's say that I want to restore this pose here, and I can see that my Maya camera and my Maya pose doesn't look anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from Storyboard Pro, I'm going to switch over to Maya, and it will automatically, for my selected panel, it will automatically restore the camera and automatically restore all the poses to match that file. Other cool thing that Flix did for me is that it automatically grabs the file that was used to generate those images. So if I wanted to know what Maya file was used to generate those images, I can just right mouse click, say show me the original Maya file, and it tells me there which file was used. So again, like speed and collaboration, make it really easy for artists to create these ideas, make it really easy to collaborate on those ideas. One of the other cool things is that once let's say that I send this to Editorial, and Editorial decides that this is going to be used for 10 frames, that shot there is 15 frames, and they time out all the panels and also decide what order they're going to be used, and from all the variations decide which variations they're going to use. When I publish this back into Maya, so if I want to start doing my shots, actually, let me reload this file. So we have the file exactly as we started with. So I'm just going to reload my file, go back to the starting point. So there's no keys, there's nothing in here. So if I use the publish Maya sequencer function that we used before, and actually in this case, I'm going to use a variation that doesn't include the image planes. So when I use that and I publish now this new edit into Maya, it creates again, the shots as we expected. So it creates for me the two different shots as I expected, and it uses the timing coming from Flix. But the other cool thing that it does is that it has the metadata for the different poses, it has the metadata for the cameras, and it actually creates an animated version for those key panels. So it takes a pass, at animating the shots for me using the timing that was used, that's defined within Flix, maybe came from Premiere or Avid, and also using the camera metadata that was stored for each particular panel. So this can become a really nice, easy way to start your previs. So rather than worrying about the timing from the very beginning, you just decide which cameras you're going to use. Once you figure out what cameras you're going to use, then you send them over to Flix, send them to Premiere, and then you add the timing. And once you have the timing, then you can start animating and create all your animated shots. And once you're ready with the animated shots, then you can publish them back into Flix. So let's say that the previous artist or layout artist finalizes the animation. They can then select different clips from here and then publish them back into Flix, and I can see that now I have an animated version of those panels. I no longer need the stills, so I'm going to delete them, and I can now leave it in there with those animated shots. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the functionality that we have through Maya. I'm going to close this. And our intent has always been to allow Flix to work nicely between all the different applications. And one of the great things that Storyboard Pro offers is the ability to import an FBX file. So one of the things that we're looking to do in future versions of Storyboard Pro is the ability to export out different the same metadata from Storyboard Pro into Flix. So if you use an FBX and you drew some panels over it, and then you want to start doing production work within Maya, you'd be able to recreate those camera views that you had in Storyboard Pro within Maya, and you can start animating your shots. Some more stuff that we offer is back into the publishing world. One of the other options that was there is the shotgun publish. So now, since we know what we have a movie for this, and we have a duration, and we also have audio, and we also have a name for the shots. When I publish into Shotgun, Flix will automatically create the shots for me if they don't already exist. And once it creates the shots, it will automatically create a QuickTime movie just for this section here. And it will automatically upload that movie into Storyboard Pro. And every time I publish a new version into Shotgun, then it will automatically version up those shots within Shotgun for me. Also, the other thing I'm going to point out is for all these options that have the little gray triangle at the bottom, these are all what we call plugins, and they are created inside using Python, and which means that you can create your own plugins that they will show up here. You can also change the plugins that we have and install them separately within Flix, and they will show up here as well. And you can tweak them in any way that it makes sense for your studio. So even if you don't use Shotgun, but you use your own tracking software, and you want the ability to link what you have from Flix into your own tracking system, then you can customize these publishing tools and make it match the needs for your studio. We also created a long list of different plugins, and we're going to keep extending this list. So if you wanted to export out all the panels as a text file that has all the latest dialogue for each one of those panels, then you can easily do that by selecting the export dialogue. If you wanted to export out an MP3 version of the audio tracks, then you can do that from here. You can also export JPEGs, you can export PSDs, or you can even export the entire edit as a CSV file. And we've done this plugin for two reasons. For all the TDs that are listening to this, like if you wanted to extend any of the scripts within Flix, this can be, you can refer to this script, and you can find out how we grab different information, like duration for each one of the panels, the name for each one of the panels, and how we include it in the CSV, and you can use this for reference. And if the CSV is useful for you in any way, then you can write tools around this CSV file. And also, Flix gives you the ability to export out QuickTime movies. And for every version, for every panel that's within Flix, there's a corresponding nuke file. So if you would like to tweak any of those panels within nuke, then you can easily open them in nuke, and there's a nuke file that you can add your own notes and change the look of this and send it back to Flix. So this gives you like a really good overview of the different functionality for Flix, how we integrate with Storyboard Pro, and how Flix can really become your pre-production pipeline. And I think that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Yiotis. So we have a couple of questions. We'll start with one question that keeps coming up. People are asking about the price of the technology. So maybe you could give us a little bit more information on that side.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question was about price.
Oh, price?
Yes.
Yeah, so Flix is really like a pre-production studio pipeline, and there's a lot of different pricing models that for Flix that match your needs for your studio. And if you're interested to know more about the pricing, please send me an email. And my email is Yiotis at thefoundry.co.uk, and I can connect you with your regional sales manager.
Great. And if you guys missed his email address, two things. One, you can either email webinars@toonboom.com and we'll forward off your request to Yiotis, or you can catch this webinar online later in the week or early next week, where you can see all the information. Now we have some technical questions. So John wants to know, how do you assign Storyboard Pro to export the storyboard sequence to Flix?
When you're working inside Storyboard Pro, let me switch to that. It's really easy. Actually, it's pretty simple. I'm going to load a sequence from here. When you're exporting out something from Storyboard Pro, you just need to export out in a Flix folder in your home space, and Flix will automatically look at that folder, and when it sees new images coming through, it will automatically import them. And in an upcoming version of Storyboard Pro, we're also going to simplify that even more. Not that it's complicated at all in any way now, but it's going to be even simpler.
Good. Another question is, I noticed that you're using Chrome for Mac. Can I install in Firefox on the Mac too?
Yes, we actually recommend Chrome. We test everything on Chrome, but it does work across all browsers, and there is studios that are using either Safari or Firefox.
Good. Also, Don has another question. He wants to know, is the Flix browser application plugin, or is it a standalone program?
It's it has like components that are running locally on your computer, but it doesn't need anything special to be installed for Chrome or Safari. One of the other things that I forgot to mention is that, so in this case, I launch Chrome and it's running on my computer, but you can also run Chrome, if you have it installed at your studio and it's installed on a server core of Flix, then you can, mystudio.com, for instance, then you can type that, and then, it will launch Flix without you having to install anything at all, but in a view version, in a view mode only. So you'll be able to view any of the sequences from anywhere remotely, as long as you have a secure connection to that server.
Good. So there's a couple of questions about online resources, predominantly tutorials and learning tools that people can find online. Are there any resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we actually have a lot of material. We have a really good user guide. We also have a series of video tutorials that's on YouTube. We have a getting started guide, which is a brief overview of what Flix does. And if you're a story artist, it's a couple of pages that just give you enough information to get you started. But then if you actually want to get more in depth about all the Flix functionality, we have a very good user guide that you can find all the information within that. Those are not really, by searching Google, you won't be able to find links to those. But if you're interested to find out more about how Flix works and you'd be interested to check out the tutorials, contact us either on the Toon Boom side or us on the Foundry, and we'll send you links to those.
Good. So we're just almost about out of time, and I don't see any other questions asked. So I think we'll end the webinar here. Thank you, Yiotis. It was really informative, and as always, great. If you guys have any questions, you can always email us at webinars@toonboom.com, or you can email Yiotis as well, or we can forward off your emails to Yiotis. This webinar is being recorded and will be online within the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.